My depression can do a lot. It can make me feel like a worthless POS, even when other people are nice to me. My depression can find cracks in that. What it can't do is penetrate vectors of like pure ebullience at seeing me.
Hello, animal lovers. Thanks so much for coming back to Rescued by a Dog, the podcast about dogs that have actually saved their owners' lives. As always, I'm Laura, host of the podcast, and I need your help. Can you give $5 to help keep Rescued by a Dog going? There are two easy ways to do this. Firstly, you could Venmo me $5 or whatever amount you want to send at the handle Laurabama. That's Laura, B as in boy A, M as in mother A. Or you can go to patreon.com/Rescued by a Dog podcast. Again, that's Patreon spelled Patreon. So patreon.com/Rescued by a Dog podcast. When you join the Rescued by a Dog community on Patreon, your $5 a month will help me continue sharing these moving stories. Today, you're going to hear from Chris, who had lost himself to darkness when a pup named Vector stumbled into his life. Now he's the author of a book called We Saved Each Other, How Rescue Dogs Help Us Through Hardship. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Okay, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Do you want to meet Vector?
I always want to meet the dog. Oh my goodness, it's a little Bubba.
Hi, this is Laura, Vector. This is Vector.
Vector, is that his name?
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty interesting name that I'm sure we'll get to in follow-up questions. But he is a 22-ish pound Sato. A Sato is a Puerto Rican street dog. It's a mutt. A lot of them have kind of interbred with each other to kind of look like Vector looks, which is kind of floppy-eared, probably some Whippet Jack Russell in there. He used to be kind of mid-dark brown, mid to light to mid brown, almost like a fawn color. As age has progressed, he's become pretty much white.
Tell me how you found him.
I found him back in 2013 through rescue organization called the Sato Project. So we found Vector online. He was being fostered in Manhattan. We drove in to meet him and love at first bite, and the rest is history.
Did he actually bite you when he first met you?
No. So he was a extremely nervous, for understandable trauma-induced reasons, animal. But when he met my wife and I, he kind of, what was weird is that, Vector came up and put his head on my thigh and he let my wife hold him. And, it was pretty much, I left there and I was like, how long is too long? It's like not long enough to wait before I call them to see if the foster parent checked in with the rescue organization. I learned half an hour after that he was ours. So he came home with us a few days later.
Okay. So what do you know about his life before he met you then?
That it was hell. The life of a Puerto Rican street dog is just like, if there's no intervention, it ends in death. The old dogs that are stray on that island are dumped. They haven't been living on the streets for 10 years because that's impossible. So Vector was about 3 when he came to us. His tail was bitten off. His ears had chunks missing at him. He's got a big scar on his snout, missing a toe. Don't know why. So he had Ehrlichia, he had heartworm, ticking time bomb. So you got to get really lucky if you're Vector. And what Vector did, unbeknownst to him, was stumble into the San Juan airport. And air traffic controllers took a liking to him, started laying out some kibble and some water for him, and they named him Vector, which is a airline term that means to guide in flight. And pretty soon, these folks they noticed that there was this woman crating dogs and flying them off the island, and pretty soon they snatched him up and they literally turned him over to her, and that's when Vector's struggle to survive ended.
So what was he like then? You said when you met him, he was scared, but it sounds like he also still had a desire to connect with people.
Yeah. he was a cowering little brown bagel curled up on the floor, and he was scared to so much as kind of relieve himself outdoors. But interestingly enough, the first night he came home, we didn't have our fence in our yard yet, and so we leashed him up and took him out for a walk. He got off his harness and ran away, and he disappears over the horizon of our little hilly side street in the suburban New Jersey, and he was gone for 2 hours. In which time you saw, a grown man cry, scouring the streets in a silly hat, like a Spelunker's hat that we had bought the previous year when Superstorm Sandy knocked out our power for a week. He came back after my wife set meatloaf on the front porch. He wasn't ready to believe in salvation yet. He wasn't there yet. Even despite the few weeks that he spent being cared for very well by the Sado Project down in Puerto Rico, and then being fostered by just a wonderful woman in Manhattan. So he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready to be a believer yet. Kind of like me when I walked into AA. But it took him, you know what? It's amazing how a creature that traumatized and that born into such horrible circumstance, he became a loving, licking companion within a month. As especially when we go to bed at night, he'd jump up on the bed and he'd get under the covers. His mom is his favorite cuddling partner at night, but I'm his favorite every other time. And they started to play tug of war with rope toys and a little bit like that, and a little bit of half fetch. You'd throw the ball, you'd go get it, and he wouldn't bring it back. And no, come bring me, and he wouldn't do it. But yeah, he'd get playful. He got playful after a while. I know you're going to eventually, this being, rescued by a dog podcast, you're going to ask me how he helped, rescue, or at least, really enhance my life, and seeing that light come on in another being's light, eyes. I'm a cocaine addict and alcoholic. It's very similar to sponsoring somebody, in the 12 steps, and you're kind of watching them kind of re-engage into life, or for Vector's really sake, engage with it probably for the first time. And he became part of the family really quickly. And we needed that. My wife and I had a lot of marital issues stemming from our addiction that we had to get over.
Tell me what was going on in your life.
So I call myself a man of many maladies. And so I of course, I'm a recovering addict. I have chronic depression, not chronic, but clinical depression that's treated. Thank God it's a lot better now. And I also have a really funky, weird, difficult to describe visual disability. My vision only corrects to about 20/70. And a lot of trauma stemming from that, because the doctors did not have a reason that a 23-year-old 20 some odd years ago was losing his eyesight. I was going blind. When I got Vector, I was going on 2 years clean. And my wife and I were really struggling with that. There's a lot of scars that it leaves on the spouse that only the person who puts them there can really help remove. The marital dynamic is so intimate and so unique that it almost takes that. The person who put the scars on her soul has to be the person to help remove them. And the person who was wronged has to be okay enough and unresentful enough to let that process play out so that the marriage can become balanced again. Because by the end of $100,000 worth of cocaine over 3 years, there was no balance in our relationship. She had all of the authority, all of the leverage, and that has to balance out, because a marriage can't go on permanently as unequals. And that's a hairy process. And we needed something that we could rally around and love just purely and without any kind of like complications of our past. And a rescue dog for a rescue marriage was a really nice thing. that's kind of the first thing that Vector really helped put on a. I think our marriage would have survived. I think our marriage got better quicker because of Vector. And it was quite linear when you look back at it. The eye trauma, the depression, the addiction, the whole lot of it. Vector is, I'm not going to say he's a panacea, he's not a cure-all, but there are just ways that there's so many different ways that he can satiate me. Okay, if I'm having a bad day, looking at Vector walking around in my backyard shows me that, this being has gone through worse, and look where he is now. He's in a much better place. I can learn that there's progress better over perfections. Some things are just never going to get completely better. Look at Vector's trauma. Vector's two main things in trauma are he hates other dogs. He cannot stand other dogs. He lunged at a Great Dane a few years back, which was really funny to everybody except me. And he is food motivated to the nth degree. Like he'll mug a 3-year-old for a hot dog. I mean, like he isn't unscrupulous when it comes to food. And as much as I've tried to temper those behaviors, they're never going to go away at this point. He's 13 and a half years old. What I'm realizing is some of those imperfections are okay. And that helps me cope, especially with my eyesight, where I don't really know when I'm missing. And it's frustrating when I flag down a bus that happens to be a truck, or when I walk up to somebody and tell them an inside joke and it's not that person. There's so many weirdnesses that go on with me that Vector's but he's a very moldable being. And there's fun in that, and relief in it as well, August of 2016, my uncle Stephen, who is kind of like my depression doppelganger, we had like basically the same strain of this disease. We like kind of had like almost a telekinesis. We were very, very close. He died suddenly, like heart attack, just like, go to bed, wake up, and, you're dead. And that really, I remember, and I mentioned, I go through it in the book a little bit. I come home. I actually went to work the next day because I figured correctly that the next week would be a lot of, a lot of services and stuff like that. So I went to work the next day and I came home and my dad was in the garden, hands on hips, just kind of looking around, 1,000-yard stare. And watching Vector be happy that I was home and do his little dance around the yard and go beg for a treat and get one inevitably, it made me not feel happy, but it made me understand that at some point it was going to be okay to be happy again. I think it's especially important for anyone grieving who also suffers from depression, because it's really easy to go past that line from appropriate sadness to disease-driven kind of, battiness that sends you into a kind of a shame thing or worthlessness and where everything's kind of gray and mucky and you're slodgy and you can't really get up. It's hard to do that even with it. And I realized that it was hard to do that even with my 2.5-year-old, and because humans bring their own complications and resentments, even when they're 2.5, but I could never bring myself, as much of a jerk as I can be sometimes, to resent Vector. It's just a level of vindictiveness that I could. I'm happy that I would never get to, or I don't think I've ever gotten to. So he pulls me out of this a whole variety of these negative emotions when I'm kind of teetering and them becoming real issues, right? Whether it's anger, whether it's depression, whether it's grief, whether it's just, being fed up with the fact that I can't see anything that's around me. Vector has this way of pulling me back from the brink.
What is it about a dog that relieves you of any negative emotions, do you think?
I think part of it might be predictability. And that's a weird answer to your question. I know that. But a dog, by and large, lives his entire adult life as the same thing. And I'll give you an example. My wife and I went away, and I think my son was 5. He was in kindergarten. He was 5. We went away for a quick Caribbean trip. It was right after COVID. We really needed to get away. And we FaceTime but Nicholas is home. He's in school already. So he's home with my wife's parents, who were taking him to school every day. And we're FaceTiming with him every day. And he's like, hey, Dad, hey, Ma, he's fine. He knows we're coming back in a few days. He didn't skip a beat. Vector went to stay with my dad. Despondent. He was just like curled up in a ball. And I realized that Vector misses me and needs me more than any being on the face of the earth. Being needed feels really, really good. And when you're needed by a being that you know is deserving of just kindness, right? And when you're providing that to that being, my depression can do a lot. It can make me feel like a worthless POS. And it can, even when other people are nice to me and validate my feelings, and my son makes me feel like I'm being a good dad, my depression can find cracks in that. It can find little slivers that he's lying to you. He's like not really being honest. What it can't do is penetrate Vector's like pure ebullience at seeing me and used to do, go jumpy, nuts and crazy. And the fact that I know that I am doing something right from the cradle to the grave, or at least, from when I got Vector to when he inevitably passes, and that I did it as, fairly well. It makes me really feel good about myself. And I know that, when Vector can validate me and on that level, as much or more as any human can. I think Vector's love is a fact, and my depression takes good tidings and throws them out the door. What it can't do is turn a stone cold fact into something that isn't a fact. Okay, it won't listen to reason until that reason is just completely undeniable. And Vector's love and the fact that he's a rescue has this little something extra to it. The fact that he is, I helped bring this dog out of I did my little part to bring this dog out of the depths of hell, and to where, he's got a good life. That's undeniable. Like, there's no way to get around the fact that his life is so much better now than it used to be. And as he ages, it's like, it's even more, I think it's even more powerful, because he gets to grow old.
How would you be different without Vector?
Wow. I'd be angrier. I'd probably fall into longer spouts of depression. I might not go to 12-step meetings anymore. Vector has a way of reminding me that if something is working, to not stop doing it. Like his leap of faith into joining our family, and to especially coming back that first day after he ran away, really kind of had an impression on me to not stop doing something that's working, and to stop questioning every little facet of recovery, because I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist in a God-driven program, and just recover. And I wouldn't be as good a parent. My son loves him. Can't get enough of him. Every morning I wake up after my wife and son wake up, and Vector's still in the bed, and I'll put my alarm off, I'll put the fan off, and I'll yell, "There's a boy here," and my son will go. That's all you hear is my son's feet kind of stomping through to the bedroom and just slamming onto the bed and, embracing Vector,
If Vector could understand human English, what would you like to say to him?
Thank you. I think he knows that I love him. I think he knows that I would do it all over again. And I hope that he understands that not only do I love him, I hope he knows that I love him as much as he loves me, which is all the way and every day.
What do you think he would want to say to you if he could speak English?
Give me a treat. I think he would tell me that he would choose me all over again. And if there's one thing that can pierce the worthlessness that depression can set in on somebody, it is that this being that is pure, love with 4 legs, would choose you all over again.